Leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. And that's a quote from Warren G. Bellis. And it's a great privilege for me to be sitting right in front of the CEO of YWCA, the person of Michèle Nadeau. How are you doing today?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for the privilege given to me to be sitting right in front of you, to be having this chat with you.
It's a privilege for me as well. Thank you.
Oh, great. Okay, so can you tell us your journey becoming the CEO of YWCA?
On my journey, I never really envisioned myself as a leader, to tell the truth, not of this organization anyways. I was very content with the work that I was doing. At the time, I was the director of programs and services. I loved my work. I was interacting well with my clients and the community. And I never really thought that I would be the leader, but the previous leader was on her way out and she literally talked me into giving this a try. So I did, and I loved it so much that I decided to apply for the position. And 6 years ago, I was the chosen candidate. And it's been a privilege ever since to lead this wonderful organization that's part of a global movement. So yeah, truly a privilege to be in this role.
So what inspired you to take on the leadership role, especially with a group focused on women and gender diversity?
I was already working at YWCA for 8 years when I took on this leadership role. So I knew the movement very well. So we are part of a nationwide movement. So there's 29 organizations across Canada and also globally. We're in 120 countries around the world. And I was already in love with that movement of bringing these forces together and doing advocacy together and transforming that into programs and services for our communities, especially for women and gender diverse folks. So that was the inspiration, that when we unite our voices, we can really create amazing changes in our community.
And how has study psychology helped shape the way you lead and support the community?
So I believe that my studies in psychology have really helped me to use a person-centered approach in my leadership, but also how I approach my community. So really taking time to listen to the people that are in front of me, whether it's clients, community members, or my teammates, and really understanding that people present in different ways for different reasons, and to really lead with empathy. So I believe that my studies in psychology were a great gift to the path that I've traveled that led me to being this leader.
You enjoy coaching others. Can you share a time when you helped someone reach their goals? And how did that experience make you feel?
So yeah, it's always a privilege to see somebody transform, right? To be able to be part of their journey. So recently we had a transition in leadership for our early learning center. So the previous leader left and we needed to find another leader. And there was this particular educator that presented with a lot of those skills. So starting some coaching sessions and really letting her understand and believe that she did have those skills because she didn't see them in herself at first. So really mirroring that back to her and being like her biggest fan, if you will, and coaching her and cheering her on. And also for her to understand that it's okay if she's not perfect because we're all works in progress and together we're going to achieve great results. And she has truly transformed. I mean, it's been almost a year. She's just been in that leadership role. And she is just amazing. And she's also acquired great respect from her teammates. So for me, it's a true privilege to see that transformation.
That's great. Mentoring people makes them feel comfortable in their role. And that's the way to get the next generation working.
Absolutely.
Great. And I'll move to my next question now. During your time at YWCA in Moncton, what big challenges have you faced and how did you solve them?
So I'd say the biggest challenge that we face, I can think of two. One is around making sure that we have enough revenue to sustain our operations and also offer the services that our community needs. So really thinking of how can we diversify our revenue, because most of our revenue come from projects. So meaning we write for grants and we get funding for projects, but they have a start date and an end date. And the sad reality about that is that once the end date is there, it can mean that we lose some teammates, but it also means that we lose services for the community. And it also means that we have to do that process again, so of writing grants over and over again. So it's very time consuming, but it's how we do most of our work. But when we're able to diversify our revenue, so for example, if we're able to have more fundraising events or folks make more donations, that helps us grow more revenue, so we can offer more services. We also do something called social enterprises. So it's kind of like a business, but the difference is that all the revenues come to the organization. And in turn, we transform that into more programs and services for the community. So we've put a big effort on overcoming that challenge. It's a work in progress. But already in the past year, I would say that we do see a shift towards being able to diversify our revenue more. The other challenge has been around retention and recruitment and retention of qualified staff. Very often, the not-for-profit world will pay less than maybe the corporate or government jobs. And that's a reality that we're constantly faced with. And because of that, we have to think of other ways that we can compensate our staff, our teammates, because the work that they do, for me, is equally important as any other sector, and it needs to be compensated as such. The sad thing is, again, the revenues are not where we want them to be, so it's really hard to compensate or have competitive wages. So we look to our HR practices to see what packages we can offer, like more vacation, more benefits, do things like fund committees, different things to really engage staff so they feel like a connection to the organization. And that's been very good for us because we've been able to retain some exceptional staff. And I have to name that a lot of that has to do with our specific intention on hiring folks that are newcomers and from different parts of the world. Very often the thing is that maybe their education, their experience is not recognized in their field, but they have so many skills that can contribute to our organization or another organization and to the community at large. So a lot of them have joined. We're almost at 50% diversity right now. And a lot of them have joined our organization and offer so many skills to not only organization, but the community at large. And I have to say that that has increased the quality over all of our services, which again makes us better equipped to serve our community. And we can serve our community right now in 16 different languages. So that's how we've overcome those challenges. But I would say that there's always challenges in the not-for-profit sector, and it's thinking of other creative solutions to really address those problems.
Oh, great. 16 different languages. That's a good job.
That's amazing.
One good thing about staffing and workforce is when people are comfortable and when people feel so appreciated and they're going to do more and they're going to do.
So true. So true.
You're doing a very good job.
Oh, thank you.
Great. So you brought back our program at YWCA Moncton. What changes did you make and what results have you seen?
So years ago, prior to being in this role, that was one of the first projects that I had was to develop our housing program. Because although we had been in the community since 1920 and some of those years were housing for women and girls, we had stepped away from doing housing. And coming back into the sector and introducing this housing program, it was very obvious that programs specifically to women and gender diverse folks, like that lens to really represent their needs, was lacking. Often when we think of somebody that is in housing need, we'll think of maybe a homeless man that we see on the street or somebody that's asking for money, and it's very much male-centered. So we often refer to homelessness and think, like I said, of men. But there's more and more women that are homeless, so that became apparent when I was doing the program, and also the fact that women's homelessness is very much hidden, meaning that we don't see as many women on the streets, but it doesn't mean that they're not homeless. They will typically do what we call couch surfing and find solutions to find a temporary home, but it's still not a home. So a lot of those efforts was understanding the need in the community and then responding to them. We have one shelter in the Greater Moncton area that's for women that are leaving gender-based violence situations or relationships. And after they've left the shelter, finding housing was often difficult. So that's where we focused at first, was to accompany these people to their new journey, their new path, because they were leaving a relationship, had to find a new normal, if you will. Some of them never had bank accounts. Some of them never even had gone grocery shopping. A lot of the things that we take for granted, they just had never done because of their particular situation. So guiding them through that process, accompanying them on that journey, that was very much where we started, and then finding them a home and then supporting them and like with home visits and connecting them to the resource that they needed. So that's what was beginning. And then that grew to understanding that housing for women and families was a big need in our community, because affordable housing units for a mom with children is really difficult. And then also understand that nowadays what demographics seems to be impacted the most, or there's definitely a lot that are impacted as senior. So senior women, we have stories of women that will say, for example, I was never rich all my life, but I could always make ends meet. And now I just received a letter from landlord. My rent is going up $400 a month. I can't afford that. So I can't believe that at my age. In this particular story, she was 71. She said, I can't believe at 71, I'm going to be homeless for the first time. My children are away. They cannot take care of me. And I have no idea where I'm going to go. So understanding that those needs are changing. And for us, it's how can we best respond to those needs and adjust to those needs? Wow. It's a big need in our community housing.
Very big need, I can tell you. Great. I'll move to the next question now. Switching to a plant-based menu at YW, Maggie's Heli Learning Center was a big step. So what made you choose this? And how has this helped the kids and the community?
So that is one of my passions, plant-based food. So little side story, prior to accepting this role of leadership, I had considered doing something completely different out of the not-for-profit sector. And I had actually started to study, I did study holistic nutrition. And I thought I was going to work in that field. But then, like I mentioned, the opportunity presented itself that I could step into this role, and I did. But I thought there's got to be a way that I can use my education. So I had been plant-based myself for many years, and a lot of people were asking me, how can I transition to plant-based, maybe one meal or completely? And I didn't feel equipped to do that. So I went to study, and I thought, I need to bring those studies back to my work because I'm very passionate about this. And the reason that I personally went plant-based was I had come to understand that when you choose either one plant-based meal or multiple, you actually reduce your carbon footprint or your impact on the environment. It's actually a positive thing for the environment. So that was my motivation because protecting the environment is really near and dear to my heart. So I decided to try the idea with our board and say, hey, what if we launched a plant-based menu at our early learning center? I knew that there weren't other centers in Atlantic Canada and very few across the country, but there's some in Europe. And I thought, if other centers can do it, we could do it too. So gradually I built the awareness. So a lot of education around this is why we're doing it. It's just about the environment. And it's really one thing that we can do out of many to protect the environment, but why not, right? And it's also to teach the children about it's cool to eat vegetables. They can actually taste really good, right? And they're good for your body. So gradually what we did is we also build awareness with the parents so they could understand why we're doing this. And then with the staff as well, so they were comfortable to serve the meals to the children and explain, this is broccoli, and broccoli does these great things to your body. And the children, pun intended, ate it up. They loved it. And what I didn't realize is that the parents were also very grateful that we did that. And I can tell you that when we launched the plant-based menu, it was in 2019. And it was just 2 years into us opening our early learning center, and we weren't at full capacity. We launched a plant-based menu, and 2 weeks after that, we were at full capacity with a wait list that has been maintained ever since. So because we carved a niche for ourselves, people really want to come to our center because of that. And what we've noticed that there's a lot of international families that is their regular diet. They're plant-based themselves. And for them to be able to send their child to a place where they know they're going to eat like they would eat at home is a gift. So we've had a long wait list, and for that reason, we're looking to create another center, a bigger center. And it's caused many ripple effects, like people asking for recipes, people asking if they can learn how to cook, if they can buy the meals. So for us, it's present opportunities to launch other social enterprises in the plant-based industry. And then the children go back home and they say, where's my broccoli, mama or papa? Can we grow a garden so we can have these vegetables at home? So it's really planting those seeds in the minds of the children so those future generations really understand that there's good value in it taking time to really feed your body well.
Great initiative, and it's also very healthy. Also consider the plant-based options. Yes. And that's a very good one. Okay, and YMCA Moncton is a part of a larger group that supports gender equity. And how does organization connect with the community to meet their needs? And can you share an example of a successful project?
Sure. So I'm a firm believer that not one single organization can do it all. We really need the collectivity of all the different organizations to meet the need of the community. So I mentioned earlier, we are part of a nationwide movement. So very grateful that we're able to tap into some of those best practices and resources that are in existence across the movement to bring to our local context. But also locally, there's, for example, a group that's called the Housing Assessment Review Team. HEART is the acronym. And we get together to look at the need of housing in the Greater Moncton area. So we have access to all the folks, the names of all the folks that we know that we've contacted who are seeking a home. And we're able to match that with whatever units we have within our different programs, like all the different agencies that do housing programs. And together we will match, if you will, a certain individual with their new home and then offer supports. And we do this together, which means that all the different organizations have to kind of like put aside the fact that sometimes we have to compete for the same money or the same resource, and those are limited. So we have to put that aside and just think we're all here for the same reason, which is to help our community. So together, when we can address the needs collectively, that's when we can have the biggest impact.
Great. Coming together and looking at the bigger picture, but everybody is doing the same thing. It might be different parts, but the same intention in mind.
Exactly.
Yes, helping the community come first. Great. So what do you think are the biggest challenges for women, girls, two-spirit, or gender diverse people in Moncton area today?
I would say, and it's true that it's near and dear to my heart, but I would say the greatest challenge right now that we know is access to affordable and safe housing. There is a big crisis in our community, not just in our community, but across Canada and different parts of the world. But I would say that right now we're faced with the biggest number of folks who are homeless or seeking a new home, and at the same time, the lowest amount of accessible and affordable housing. The problem is that there's been a lot of shifts in our community where the cost has gone up. There's been a lot of folks that have come to our community from the bigger centers, have purchased properties and have turned them into short-term rentals, like Airbnbs, for example. It's also the fact that corporations have bought some apartment buildings and are no longer situated here. For us, it's harder to make connections with these landlords because they're not invested in the community. It's not to say these individuals are not wonderful, but they're not invested in the community here as much because they're not situated here. So for us, very often, when we create housing for the folks that we serve, it's about making those relationships with landlords so they're able to negotiate maybe more affordable prices. So that's harder to do. So again, with the rising in the number of folks that are just not able to make ends meet and find themselves homeless, and at the same time, the cost of living and the cost of housing going up, it's a really difficult time in our community.
How do you make sure your advocacy work includes and represent everyone in the community?
A lot of the work that we do is advocacy. And when we do advocacy, we see it is our responsibility to carry the voice of the people that might not have the platform to have their voice heard, respected, and represented well. So we are, if you will, the carriers of the voices of the ones that are maybe voiceless, right? No fault of their own, it's just the circumstances. So it's very important that we take the time to listen and truly understand their perspective, maybe the challenges that they're facing, so we can go and advocate on their behalf. It's also important that we observe carefully all the different needs in the community. So again, we can use certain platforms to say, hey, this is needed for our community. These changes within maybe some policies or whatever are needed because it's not meeting the needs of our community. So advocacy is a huge part of our work. And again, being part of this nationwide movement, a lot of the work that we do across the board is advocacy. Actually, our national tagline or our tagline for the YWCA movement is national advocacy, local actions. So that's very much represents the work. So we do advocacy all the time, but the advocacy then translates into offering services to our communities.
How you use photography as a way to relax and also to reflect. How does this hobby influence your work and outlook? on life?
So photography is another passion of mine. I often say that I'm a woman of many passions, and photography feeds my soul and heart. So whenever I'm able to go out in nature and just be one with nature and then observe nature through my lens, it's my therapy. It's what connects me back to my true self, to nature, to everything. And I believe that it's a good link to my work because it forces me to remind myself of staying in the now, staying in the present moment, to sit back and observe before maybe acting. So it's been a great trainer. Like, nature is a great teacher. And I also really see that when you observe nature, you might look at certain aspects of nature, and sometimes through my lens, I'll see something like maybe, for example, that there's a tree that's not so pretty compared to others. But then when you step back and you look at the big picture, everything's perfect. Everything is just as it should be. So in my work as well, sometimes it's easy to focus on one problem and think, oh my goodness, how am I going to solve this? Or maybe this is going to be like the end of us, like to really dramatize things. But then when you step back and you think, you know what? It is just one problem among a beautiful agency, and there's so much positive compared to the one negative. So having that global perspective, it's something that I feel nature reminds me all the time.
Excellent. And I quite agree with you because I share the same passion with you. I know photography, and sometimes it means different things to different people. Sometimes you derive your strength and your passion from photography. I love the sunsets. I love the beach side. Yes. I love things that ignite my passion. I quite agree with you that photography is quite inspirational.
It is, yeah, it is. Actually, if I can add, I love to chase birds with my camera. That's my biggest passion. And again, birds remind us that they just do their own thing. Everything is okay. Everything has a time and everything is in order. So again, applying that to my work has been very helpful.
And you love hiking and kayaking. How do you balance your role as a CEO with your personal hobbies?
I am a work in progress, meaning that I have not mastered the art of that perfect balance between work and personal life. And I have to say that I'm very fortunate because my work really feeds me. I love my work. So it's very easy for me to put a lot of time into my work. At the same time, I know that I need to recharge my batteries. So I would love to be able to tell you, hey, I spend so much time out in nature, hiking and kayaking. I don't as much as I want to, but I can tell you that when I'm out there, again, it's that sense in nature to be able to be just at peace and observe your environment and just take in that serenity. It really recharges my battery. I need to do more work, though, in terms of balancing that, taking care of myself, spending time in nature, and then work, of course, because it's easy for me to work a lot of hours.
Great. Let's talk about traveling and also cultural experiences. Has it taught you anything important about community and gender issue?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I've had the privilege to travel to different countries over the years, and I've learned so much. And I have to admit that whenever I travel, I do have my feminist hat on. So of course, gender-based things is always in my heart. And it's been very educational to observe how a lot of different cultures, there's still a lot of work to do with regards to gender equity. But cultures will celebrate that or respond to that very differently. And you'll have some cultures where you would think that it is very up to par, so gender equity is there, but then the more you look into it, you realize that no, there's still work to be done. So that is good to know that we also have work to be done. And I think globally, I think gender equity is still a thing that we all need to address and work on. But I'll say that my international travels have also taught me the value of community. And in, let's say, the more impoverished maybe countries that I've visited, it's so obvious how community comes together to really join their forces to make sure that everybody has their needs met. That has always inspired me. I've had the privilege of seeing that many, many times. And again, bringing this to the community, it's true. Like I said before, you can't do it alone. So when you bring all those forces together, it's just amazing what you can do to transform your community. The other thing I have to say that my travels have taught me is how important it is to protect the generational knowledge. By that, I mean that elders are treasures, right? I remember some of the travels that I did. Senior citizens' home, for example, did not exist in their countries. And here, there's a lot of senior citizens' home. And the reality is that, sadly, a lot of these seniors are in homes and maybe are almost, I don't want to say forgotten about their families, but don't have the connections or the visit as often as I'm sure they would like from their families. And in the countries that I visit, that didn't exist. The seniors stayed within the family unit. The seniors have the wisdom, which was shared to the children and the generations. The seniors were very active, had a great part in raising the children in the family. And that I found to be incredibly inspiring and so precious. And for that reason, it's what's going to inform our future housing project, which is really housing for senior women, but with that intergenerational model, so that the younger generations can come and learn from the seniors, but also that the younger ones can also teach seniors, maybe about technology or something like that. But again, that awareness of how seniors are respected in other cultures have been very eye-opening for me.
It's eye-opening is the word, to learn from other country, other culture, and what they do, and the positive impacts we can derive from what's working for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I agree with you. What are your goals for YMCA Moncton, and how do you see the organization growing in the future? And also, what legacy do you hope to leave as a CEO?
Well, I've never really thought about a legacy, but I can tell you that our objectives right now, which are part of our current strategic plan, is to diversify our revenue, so more philanthropic revenue, and also to increase our brand awareness, because still a lot of folks don't understand or realize that the YWCA exists. The YMCA is very known. I think it's because they have that YMCA song that is very old, but it's still very popular. But in all seriousness, though, we still need to increase the visibility of our brand. So we do a lot of work, again, in bringing people in so they can understand the work that we do, bringing people for tours, giving presentations in the community, and just, again, raising our profile, presence on social media, all of those things. So that is one of our biggest goals right now, because we do need help from different folks to make sure that we are sustainable for many years to come. And the other thing that's in our strat plan is launching a social enterprise. So we recently just launched another social enterprise that's called Le Veg Catering. It's plant-based catering, and it's also takeaway meals. So this allows us to diversify our revenue. So again, the profits from this agency or this enterprise is going to come back to the agency to create more programs and services. And the last focus is really on being able to create housing for seniors, like I mentioned, and opening a new early learning center that's going to be very forest focused, meaning is like a forest early learning center, meaning that the classrooms are indoors and outdoors. And again, children are exposed to nature and understand that better. And we also want to bring an Indigenous lens to that. So those teachings, again, that wisdom to be shared with the children and passed on. We are dreaming about having a lot of land so we can have gardens and continue to do the same things that we do now, which is composting, collecting rainwater, hydroponics. And it's always about teaching the children about these different practices as well, so it can carry on for multiple generations to come.
You led both YWCA and Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Greater Moncton. How do these two organizations work together to help the community?
Yes, I did have the privilege for 5 years to lead the two agencies, and it's just in January 2024 that they were independent again, if you will. So because they were undergoing financial problems, we decided to bring them in here, but still maintain the agency as a whole, meaning that they still had their independent board of directors, independent strategic plan, and all of those things. So really, I had the two separate agencies for 5 years. And the goal was just to grow the financials, and so they were sustainable. Also expand the team, because they were down to just a team of two, and to grow the leadership, because it was very apparent that one of the long-standing staff of that agency, of Big Brothers Big Sisters, had a lot of those skills and qualities. It was just building that confidence a little bit, so we did that. And now, like I said, they are separate, but they're still in our building, which is fantastic, because this agency offers amazing services for our community. And we're able to partner either when we do funding applications, so we apply for grants, we can come together to offer youth programs. And especially in the summertime, we collaborate a lot in bringing different services, again, around youth programs to the different communities or sections in our community. And it's really a great exchange to have both agencies here because, for example, Big Sisters might be working with a family that is at risk of eviction or losing the home, and then they can talk to our housing team, and so on and so forth. So there's a natural exchange. And again, it just goes to reinforce that not one agency can do all the work in the community, that it's really when we come together and collaborate that we can have an impact.
Amazing. Collaboration is the word. It's the only way to achieve a long-serving community like this that has so many needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. And this is going to be my last question to you. What advice would you give young women and gender diverse individuals who wants to become leaders in their community, people that wants to impact and lead positively?
I would say just do it. I believe that everybody's a leader in their own regard, in their own circles, whether it's a visible leadership role or in their families. Everybody at one time is a leader. So we all have it in us. And I would also say, get a mentor or a coach, because to be able to guide along that journey, it's been priceless for me. I've had a coach for many, many years, and that's very important to me, to have that safe person that you can bounce ideas off, and this person can give you feedback and reflect certain things on you that you might not see otherwise. So I would say get a coach, get a mentor. I would also say connect yourself with other leaders, right? Associate with other leaders, because you're going to learn, you're going to be inspired from these other leaders as well. And I would say don't aim for perfection. Aim for doing your best. We're all a work in progress, I believe. So to be at peace with that as long as you're consistent, you do your work, and it comes from the heart, that you're going to have an impact, right? So that's what I would say, but I definitely believe that everybody can be a leader.